Hey, hello. Good to see you. Welcome to another episode of Moonlit Tales by London Blue. Lit tales to tale under the moon. So glad you dropped by. Please like, subscribe, and share this channel. Meanwhile, on to the story. The Kiss by London Blue. Mel was thrusting her weight up and down on the long wooden dowel when she felt two rough hands snag along the sides of her nightgown. "What are you doing, sexy? That looks like fun," Vance whispered in her ear. Mel giggled and replied, "Oh, does it now? Well, here, you have a go at it." She spun around and shoved the toilet bowl plunger against his chest. "And when you're done unclogging the sink, how about you take a look in the dishwasher? All the water and mess from the garbage disposal is backed up in there. We need to get this cleaned up and fixed before tonight," she said just before walking out of the kitchen. Vance shook his head and grumbled as he took over plunging the sink drain. He leaned back and called to the bedroom where she had just disappeared. "So everyone is coming to the New Year's party?" After a long pause, she returned, buttoning her blouse. "Yes, everyone except Joy and Frankie. They are going to his sister's house." "Great. I'll stop by the liquor store and get something to liven it up after work," Vance said, as the clog released and the murky water gurgled as it drained. "Sink is clear." He pulled her into his arms. "Now, come and give me some love before I have to go to work." She pulled away from his embrace with a coy laugh and firmly stated, "We don't have time for that. You're going to be late." "Okay, then. Tonight? Before the party, I mean," he replied with a wink. Mel kissed him on the cheek and smiled. "We'll see. We do have a lot to do to get ready. Have a good day, babe. Love you." Yeah, Vance said as he put on his coat and headed out the door. Just as the door closed, it popped back open and his head squeezed through the opening with a wide grin. "I love you too." Then it closed again and he was gone. Mel spent the next several hours cleaning and decorating for the big event. After mixing and rolling 60 sausage balls, she realized the oven never preheated. She opened the oven door and stuck her hand inside. Nothing. The racks and heating elements remained as cold as the kitchen counter. "Are you kidding me?" she yelled. She grabbed her phone and texted Vance. "Now the oven won't work. Something has got to give." Not really expecting a reply, Mel decided to cook the sausage balls on the grill out back. Her phone pinged as she stood trembling from the cold, hovering over the heat emitting from the grill. It was a text from Vance. "I'm sorry, baby. I'll look at it when I get home." As the day progressed, Mel's stress level elevated with each obstacle she had to overcome. Deciding she had done all she could do for the moment to prepare for the party, she elected to take a hot shower in an attempt to relax. The water pressure dropped and quickly turned cold, Frustrated, she turned the shower off and put on her robe. Taking in a deep breath to enjoy the aromas of her body wash and shampoo, Mel noticed an odd burning smell. The steam from the small room had disguised the smoke rolling up outside the tiny bathroom window. However, as she dressed, she saw a flickering light along the bottom edge of the glass. "Oh no!" she shouted as she ran back and saw the grill in flames. Mel quickly ran into the house, grabbed the tiny fire extinguisher, and returned to the grill to quench the fire. Apparently, she had forgotten to turn off the gas after removing the sausage balls, and the remaining grease had dripped, igniting a fire. Vance had just walked in when he saw her coming through the back door. "Are you okay?" "What happened? I smell smoke," he asked with great concern and a scrunched brow. "Yeah, I'm fine. It's just been a day." He met her midway in the kitchen and hugged her. Mel began to shed a tear as she tightened her grip around his large belly. "Why don't you go rest until our guests come? I got it from here," Vance said, and then let her go. Later that evening, Mel woke from a short nap and slipped on a silver sequin top and her favorite black leggings. She took a few minutes to fix her hair and makeup before going through the house to look for Vance. Walking past the kitchen table, she realized he hadn't put out the festive plates, napkins, and tablecloth she had scrimped to buy. Nor did he hang the paper lanterns or even blow up the balloons. She entered the living room and found him asleep in the recliner with an empty glass of dried up milk residue. "Yuck!" she exclaimed with aggravation. "Vance! They will be here in like 20 minutes. What have you been doing? I thought you were going to finish everything." Vance jumped up and replied, "I'm sorry. I fell asleep. What do you need me to do?" "Never mind, I'll do it myself," Mel said, stomping into the kitchen. "Could you at least blow up the balloons?" she hollered back into the living room. Vance sat in his chair and began inflating the black and silver balloons while Mel worked on setting the table for a festive buffet. Before they could complete their tasks, their guest arrived. 2 by 2, the house filled with friends, music, and laughter. Mel turned on the big screen TV and tuned in to New York Times Square coverage so they could watch the ball drop. Then she passed out plastic flutes of champagne so everyone could toast in the new year simultaneously. Vance crossed the room, bumping into friends to get beside Mel before the countdown. Everyone stopped, raised their glass, and counted backwards. 10, 9, 8, 7. For a brief moment, the camera zoomed in on a couple dressed to the nines standing on a high-rise balcony. The man's sparkling cufflinks peeked out from under his coat. The woman with a fancy updo was adorned with a diamond and ruby necklace that looked like it should have been in a museum. A thick, wide diamond bracelet dangled from her wrist as she held a tall champagne glass in her hand. "That's what I want," Mel thought. I bet that woman doesn't have to work, clean, cook, or more importantly, fight a broke-down house. Their small crowd of friends continued to count with excitement. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Happy New Year! Each person gulped down their glass of cheap bubbly. Vance grabbed Mel and pulled her close to him. She closed her eyes as he placed both of his rough, calloused hands on each side of her face and kissed her passionately. Suddenly, the feel of his touch was gone, replaced by a cold burst of air that chilled her to the bone. She quickly opened her eyes and screamed at the sight overlooking Times Square from a glass balcony. A tall, slender man stood beside her. Cheers to another year, he said as he clanked his short, broad glass against her tall crystal flute and sucked down the remaining bourbon in it. He walked through the French doors into the elaborately decorated apartment attached to the balcony. Mel stood in shock, shivering in the cold. What just happened? Where am I? Where is Vance? She thought. Melody, are you going to stay out there until you freeze to death? The man called out to her. Mel turned and went inside. Closing the door behind her, she gazed around the room, taking in each piece of enormous artwork hanging on the walls. Despite the cold, sterile feeling, she stood in awe. Then her eyes stopped on a disturbing, full-size sculpture of a half-naked woman in the corner who looked just like her. I'm going to Sandra's, the man said, putting on a cashmere overcoat. Mel, utterly confused, shook her head and asked, What? He walked past her to grab his hat off the black leather chair and smacked her on the butt, then said, Now, Melody, don't be like that. I kept my promise and stayed with you until the ball dropped. I'll see you sometime tomorrow afternoon. Mel stuttered, calling out to him as he opened the door to leave. But, wait! Who are you? With a chuckle, he replied. The same man you married 5 years ago. Good night. With that remark, he closed the door, and a woman came down the narrow staircase along the wall. So, I'm guessing the door closing was Mr. Rockwell leaving? The young woman asked. Mel nodded with wide eyes. The woman went over to the long marble island dividing the sitting area from the kitchen. So, are these just leftovers, or are you done with the hors d'oeuvres, ma'am? Mel nodded again and sat down in the leather chair. You know, I have no idea why you put up with that. Of course, it's none of my business, but you could do so much better. The lady continued as she cleaned the counter from what was left over. Would you like some more champagne? Mel nodded again just before she drank what was left in the glass she was still clutching. The woman approached with a large bottle and refilled her glass. Just leave it, Mel said, while taking the bottle from the woman's hand. Yes, ma'am. Will that be all? Yes, Mel replied. Okay, well, I'm going to go home now if that's all right. My husband was waiting for me so we can celebrate together. Still staring off in shock, Mel nodded one last time at the woman and raised her hand to wave goodbye. As the door closed, Mel chugged the fresh glass of champagne the woman had poured for her. A cell phone began to vibrate on the table next to the chair. She set down the glass and slowly picked up the phone, assuming it was hers. She answered. Hello? A man's voice asked. Did you do it? Did I do what? Who is this? Come on, Melody. Don't be skittish. You know it's me, Dan. Did you lace his drink with the poison I left for you? What? You know you have to do it tonight. Tonight is the only chance you'll get. I've made all the arrangements for you, but it has to be tonight. What are you talking about? Mel asked. I'm down in the lobby. I'll be right up. A few moments passed before the doorbell rang. Mel sat the phone down, but held tightly to the bottle as she answered the door. Standing in front of her was Danny, an old childhood friend. Mel leaped toward him with a big hug. What is going on? He asked. Did you give it to him? I have no idea what is going on. 1 minute we are all standing in my living room toasting in the new year, and the next, I'm standing on the balcony with Mr. What's his name? You tell me, Danny, what is going on? Oh, my. I think you may have had too much to drink. First of all, no one has called me Danny in years, he said while taking the bottle from her hand and closing the door. I'm guessing you didn't give him the poison? Where is he? I don't know. He said he was going to Sandra's, wherever that is. And you just let him go? How was I to stop him? I don't even know who he is. So why would I try? He's your neglectful, cheating husband that you can't divorce because he said he would kill you first. Oh, Mel said with a sigh. Well, on the other hand, she held out her arm to admire the diamond bracelet and motioned around the room. This does seem to be the life. You have been trying to get out of this life for years. You said he won't even kiss you, and he basically keeps you locked up in here. Just how much have you had to drink tonight? Dan replied with a bit of anger brewing in his voice. Just 2 glasses, I think. So what was the plan? You were supposed to lace his drink with the poison I left. Wait for him to collapse, slip the note of confessions to his illegal deals and abuse, and then call 911. Mel's eyes popped open wide. And then what? And then Carter will be on standby to answer the call and ensure everything is covered when the ambulance arrives. Carter? What's he doing now? He's a cop, Melody. You need to call Mark and get him back here. Mark? She asked. Your husband! What the hell is wrong with you tonight? Call him and say someone is trying to break in or something. Okay, she said. I wonder if this will get me back to my real life. Get me back to Vance. she thought while picking up the phone and searching the contacts for a Mark. She found his number and clicked on it. "It's ringing," she said. Mel grabbed the bottle back from Dan and took a big swig. Dan walked down the hall to her bedroom. He opened the drawer of her dainty white vanity, trimmed in gold, and pulled out the letter they had prepared ahead of time and the tiny brown vial of poison. When he returned to the living room, he heard her finishing the conversation with Mark on the phone. "Yes, it's locked, but someone is jiggling the handle and pounding on the door. Please hurry!" Mel motioned toward the door with a nod to Dan. Dan caught on and pounded on the door as loudly as he could. "Call security," Mark replied. "It's New Year's. I think they all have left. Please just come home." "Fine," Mark said and hung up. Dan anxiously asked, "So is he coming?" He was reluctant, but yes, I believe he is. "Okay, well, I have to get out of here then. Stick with the plan. Get him to drink the poison. Here is the note," Dan said while handing her the letter and the vial. After Dan left, she quickly slid the note in her bra. Well, if he won't kiss me, he surely won't be looking in there, she thought. Then she walked over to the small bar beside the life-size statue to make the deadly drink. She emptied the vial of poison into a glass and added 2 shots of his favorite bourbon. And then thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? I can't murder someone. There must be another way. She left the glass on the bar and wandered down the hall, searching for their bedroom. She saw a California king draped in a dark purple brocade canopy as she walked in. She lay on the soft feather-down comforter and curled into a fetal position. Her heart ached for Vance. She longed to feel his touch, hear his voice, kiss his lips. She cried herself to sleep, wanting to give it all away just to be back in his arms. Nearly an hour had passed before she was woken by Mark coming in. He slammed the door and began to yell while searching each room for her and a so-called would-be burglar. Mel met him in the living room under the staircase at the end of the hall. He had just descended from the stairs. "So where is this burglar?" Mark asked, as his face began to flush in anger. "I suppose he gave up? I can see you were quite worried about me, though, considering I called you an hour ago." "Woman, I'm not playing these games with you," Mark said as he jerked off his coat and dropped it on the floor. "I assume Marcy has left for the night." "You would assume correctly. Therefore, you will have to pick up your own coat." "Don't be smart. Go make me a drink, since you drug me back here." "Make it yourself," she replied and turned to go back to the bedroom. Approaching the hall's midway point, she heard ice cubes fall into a glass. She recalled the drink she had left sitting on the bar with the poison. No! She shouted as she rushed back to the living room. Mark was standing there holding the glass in his hand. Have you gone mad? What is wrong with you? Mel grabbed the glass, but he struck it from her hand, and it shattered against the side of the bar. As Mel turned to walk away, she stepped on a piece of the glass. Blood oozed from the bottom of her foot. When she reached down to remove the shard from her heel, she realized it was a different glass. She shook her head and again began to walk away. He shouted, "No, you don't!" and grabbed the back of her blouse, causing her to slip and fall backward. Her head bounced on the ceramic floor and began to bleed. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to do it," Mark said with fear. Staring at her steel body on the floor, he reached toward the bar. Fumbling around nervously, he grabbed the glass sitting there. The same glass she had prepared for him earlier with the poison. He guzzled the contents and knelt beside her. The room started spinning, his heart racing, and his vision became blurry. Looking at the glass in his hand, Mark realized what she had done and dropped it onto the floor. He leaned in and kissed her, intending to pass the poison from his lips just in case she managed to survive the fall. Then he saw the corner of the note sticking out from her cleavage. Blinking, trying to focus, he plucked it from her bra while panting like an overexcited pup. Before he could open it, he collapsed, crumpling the paper in a death grip. Her phone vibrated on the table several times. Finally, Dan barged through the front door. He rushed over beside Mel and called 911. As planned, Carter intercepted the call, happened to be close by, and was first to respond. However, the scene couldn't have been set any better. It was a clear case of domestic dispute and suicide, with the deceased clutching the note. Mel was rushed to the hospital. A sweet, soft kiss awakened her. She opened her eyes. It was Vance. She wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him closer. "I miss you so much. Promise me that you will never leave," she stated with tears in her eyes. Baby, I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I've been with you this whole time. I've never left your side." "What? How? I mean, what happened?" she asked in a dazed state. "The ball dropped and I kissed you. Then..." "Then what?" Mel asked. Danny entered into the room and said, "Then I dropped my glass and it broke. I'm so sorry, but while you were trying to clean it up, you cut your foot on it and..." "Okay," she replied, slowly implying the question, "and what?" Vance raised his brows, gritted his teeth in anguish, and explained, "Then that leak in the ceiling I never got around to fixing, well, it caved in a little and kind of caused the ceiling fan to break loose and..." "And what?" she anxiously asked in a heightened voice, springing upright. And it hit you on the head, Vance said quickly, sinking his head between his shoulders like a turtle. Mel started laughing. Are you serious? That is hilarious! You think that's funny? I figured you would kill me, Vance said. Mel clutched Vance's arms, pulled him against her, and squeezed him tight. I love you and our broke-down house, you big lug. And me too? Danny asked. Yes, and you too, she replied with a grin. It must have all been some crazy dream. Well, I'm glad it's over.